Good day, dear audience. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we'll be reviewing the book Mindful Teacher, Mindful School, Improving Wellbeing in Teaching and Learning, written by Kevin Hawkin. As you might have guessed from the title, this book is for educators who wish to cultivate mindfulness in the classroom. The author has worked as a teacher himself who worked with children and adolescents under various contexts in multiple countries. In his book, Hawkins provides advice on helping teachers practice mindfulness in their professional and personal lives, thus using mindfulness to care for their own mental health. When teachers are healthier and more mindful, they can then bring mindfulness practices into the classroom, improving their students' well-being by both teaching more mindfully and training the students in mindfulness. In the following minutes of the podcast, we'll be discussing the validity of the arguments presented in the book and see if mindfulness can really influence the well-being of educators and their students, while exploring whether the arguments are valid across contexts or dependent on other factors. At the end of the podcast, I will share some of my personal insights after reading the book and explain how the main message could be relevant to your daily life, regardless of whether you work as an educator or not. So, let's begin. The main arguments proposed in the book are that mindfulness could help teachers improve their well-being and teach better. When teachers can improve their mental health, teach mindfully, and pass on mindfulness skills to their students will also have higher levels of well-being. To see if what proposed here is true, we'll first look at whether mindfulness skills can really improve teachers' wellness. Hawkins mentioned that mindfulness training brings our attention out of thinking mode into sensing mode, where we stop focusing on inner thoughts, but instead direct our attention towards our body and senses, so that we will not be overwhelmed by our thoughts. He also stated that mindfulness helps with stress management through letting people recognize their stress response and notice that they are stressed so they can deal with it in adaptive ways. In other literature, multiple studies discovered that mindfulness was effective for educators in reducing stress and burnout. A meta-analysis conducted by Zarate et al. In 2019, reviewing 18 studies, showed that mindfulness-based interventions obtained significant results in education settings, with a large effect in increasing teacher mindfulness, moderate effect in reducing feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression, and a smaller but still significant effect in reducing burnouts. Comparing the results of these studies to what the book proposed, we can see that they are mostly consistent. Teaching is an extremely demanding and sometimes emotionally draining profession, so burnout and high level of stress, as well as uncomfortable feelings, are quite common. As mindfulness techniques help teachers better cope with unpleasant sensations and experiences and teach them additional self-care skills, they experience improved well-being as well as fewer unwanted feelings and stress. Then, let's look at whether students benefit from having a mindful teacher who can teach mindfully and make use of mindfulness techniques to manage their own well-being. The book emphasizes a lot on the importance of self-care in teachers. To pass on self-care techniques to students, teachers need to first take good care of themselves and know how to apply these skills. Teachers who practice mindfulness are said to be more sensitively attuned to the classroom environment and students' needs, engage in fully connected with students, while building better student-teacher relationships. These arguments were also consistent with recent studies. For example, research by DiCaprio et al. In 2021 showed that for teachers who participated in mindfulness-based intervention, not only did they report an improvement in self-compassion, emotional regulation, and self-efficacy, but their students also perceived them as more involved, with an increase in quality of the tutor-teacher relationship. Moreover, students displayed improvement in peer relationships, better emotional regulation skills, and generally higher levels of well-being despite not being involved in any interventions themselves. The result from this study was highly consistent with what was proposed by the book. As teachers gain higher level of mindfulness through repeated practices, not only can they teach better due to improved well-being, but as they become accustomed to bringing their attention towards what's happening in the present, they will also become more aware of their behaviors in the classroom and how their students are affected, while growing mindful of their students' needs and the relationship they have with their students. By achieving this, teachers could better handle difficult moments in the classroom while constructing a secure relationship with their students through being present and responding sensitively to their needs. Since teachers are important role models who could influence a child's development, by having teachers who know how to take care of themselves, regulate their emotions in difficult situations, and cultivate healthy and rewarding relationships with others, students will also learn from these examples and shape their own behaviors according to what the teacher displayed. Therefore, the arguments presented in the book are valid, and training educators in mindfulness practices could have positive influences on both the student and the teacher. Now, you might be wondering, it all sounds amazing, but do these effects apply to everyone? Well, mindfulness was shown to be effective in different cultural settings and for teachers working with different age groups. Locally in Hong Kong, we also have the ongoing Jockey Club Peace and Awareness Mindfulness Culture in Schools initiative, also known as PANDA, that promotes mindfulness in both primary and secondary schools, demonstrating its effectiveness in a Chinese setting. However, the effectiveness of mindfulness seemingly varies according to personal factors of trainees. Research by Abinavoli et al. In 2013 showed that mindfulness has a higher moderating effect on emotional exhaustion caused by stress for educators who are experiencing higher levels of stress, and its protective effects against burnout were also more pronounced in teachers who are more ambitious. In addition, another study by Marcy et al. In 2025 concluded that teachers' temperament and character also moderates the effectiveness of mindfulness training. For example, teachers with lower self-directedness and higher need for social approval tend to benefit more from mindfulness in lowering levels of anxiety. From these studies, we can see that mindfulness training is more effective for teachers with pre-existing vulnerabilities that makes them more susceptible to unpleasant emotions and negative effects brought by stress, bringing a higher level of improvement for these individuals. However, for teachers who are more adaptive and can regulate their stress and emotions well, they might experience fewer positive effects from mindfulness training. Therefore, while reading about all these positive effects experienced by teachers and students, we should also be aware that mindfulness effectiveness is influenced by outside factors, particularly pre-existing vulnerabilities in individuals. Because of this, mindfulness might not be effective for everyone, and the experience might also be different from different individuals. Now, after these discussions, I will share some of my own insights on the book. Since Mindful Teacher, Mindful School promoted the importance of shifting the balance of schooling from a heavily academic-based practice to one that, through promoting mindfulness within schools, also prioritized students' social emotional learning and well-being. A major question that I have after reading the book is whether such changes could be possible in Hong Kong, especially considering our exam-oriented education system and traditional culture that values performance in school. With how Hong Kong people tend to place a heavy emphasis on academic achievement and how university entrance is mainly based on grades, the balance shift suggested by the book might be even harder to achieve here. To resolve this question, I searched for clues in some of the local programs presented in Hong Kong, such as the Panda Initiative introduced before. These programs are quite successful, with many schools participating and sharing positive feedback about their experience. As I went through some of the feedback offered by schools and see how happy their students are, I realized that although changes might be slow and gradual, as it is hard to change a deep-rooted culture, more educators and schools have begun to realize the importance of keeping students mentally healthy, and they are achieving this through mindfulness. I can see that our education system is gradually moving in a positive direction, and to fully resolve my question on this topic, I plan to pay continuous attention to the development and results of these mindfulness projects, hoping that they'll be able to include more schools in their actions in the future. Moreover, although Mindful Teacher, Mindful School is mainly about the application of mindfulness practices in schools, non-educators can also benefit from its message. Not only does the book provide guidance and resources for a few mindfulness practices that readers can try out if they are interested, but it also emphasizes the importance of letting educators learn to help themselves before they can help and teach others how to care for themselves. This message is especially important because in our busy lives, we often put the needs of others before our own needs. This could occur in the workplace, especially if you work in a caring profession such as teachers and caregivers, but could also happen in close relationships. However, as the book explained, educators can only help their students develop self-care skills and enhance their teaching skills when they are able to take good care of themselves first. This principle could also apply to other non-educational settings, reminding readers that they need to ensure that they are healthy and well cared for before they can take good care of others and address their needs. Therefore, by being mindful of the importance of prioritizing our well-being, we could improve our own wellness, prevent burnout, and help others more effectively. In conclusion, Mindful Teacher, Mindful School is an inspiring book that comes with useful advice and guidance. If you are a teacher who is overwhelmed by your profession, worry about the mental health condition of your students, or simply looking for ways and strategies to improve your teaching and help you better manage your classroom environment, this will be quite an excellent read for you. If not, you can still benefit from the message of the book and the simple mindfulness practices it includes, which can help you relieve stress and better manage difficult emotions and situations. So, be sure to give it a try if you are interested. That's all for today. Thank you for listening, and please take care.